interesting, next couple of years. So looks like yard sales in the chat. Good evening, sir. I hope you're doing well. And so for all of those everyone watching, welcome. We've got Jared from 2 Alpha Solutions and Drew from the Terminal Element. And then I guess we've got JS8 spun up. Drew, 20 meters, you said?
We are on 20 meter 14078. Send a message to @TCS. I'll find it, hopefully, if propagation is our friend today, and we'll read it on the air.
Excellent. And I'm in a new ham shack today, so no more green screen behind me. It's all real. So
it's sort of green. It's greenish. What color is that?
It's sort of a
sea foam,
kind of a gunmetal, I guess.
Greenish. What color is that? Gunmetal.
It's sort of a
sea foam. Jared, you got to turn that volume down.
I did. That's what I was working on.
Well, we got a few things lined up. So one of the topics will be an FCC warning that was issued to a licensee regarding out-of-band transmissions. Kind of mentioned this a second ago, but the ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran. And rounding things out will be the potential of the threat of cyber attacks as a result of that ongoing conflict. And of course, if you guys have anything that you want to interject with and throw in there, then do so, and we'll see where the conversation goes. But I guess to start things off, let me just add this to our stage here. So one of the stories making the rounds in the amateur radio world recently involves a Pennsylvania operator who was, I guess, was contacted by the FCC after interfering with local emergency communications. And according to the FCC, I guess this happened in Allegheny County. Emergency services traced interference back to a local amateur operator. This guy also has a GMRS license from what I read. But what makes this especially interesting is that it wasn't intentional, but basically what was happening is his radio was keying up on a public safety channel. And when they looked into this, they determined that he was using like a BTEC UV Pro. And I guess it has an audio relay feature. And that was enabled. And it essentially caused the radio to retransmit what it heard from the county emergency channel. And so they contacted this guy. He, handed him his radio to, show him what he was doing. They disabled the feature, and of course that interference stopped. But I guess he was warned. He was required to explain what steps he would take to avoid another violation. And I think one of the things worth discussing is that, one, this doesn't really appear to be a deliberate case of someone maliciously jamming emergency communications. Drew, I think you mentioned you had a guy up in Idaho at one point that was just keying up emergency frequencies and, saying things like officer down or something to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, I think this is really cool. I get this impression the more I learn about these FCC enforcement actions that you have to really be absolute cat penis to get fined by these guys. Like, so this is an innocent mistake. Any one of us could have made this mistake, accidentally left this feature on our radio that accidentally made it. What was it? Just a simplex repeater function, I think, onto that other onto that frequency, which I think it's absolutely prudent to have emergency frequencies in your radio to be monitoring them, or even potentially use them in an extreme emergency. And they just said, fix it and tell us how you're going to fix it. I think that's extremely reasonable.
Yeah, it seems
I appreciate that.
A case of
just brought it to his attention that he obviously didn't know it was happening.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a case of someone that doesn't quite understand all the functionality of his radio. I mean, a lot of newer radios, they come loaded with a lot of interesting features, audio relays and crossband repeat, Vox, which is not new, but that is a feature on there.
Vox terrifies me. I'm absolutely terrified of Vox.
And then you've got remote operation through like Bluetooth, digipeating or like retransmission of of data. So, for someone that's pretty experienced, those might be manageable, but for someone that's new who just wants to listen to local public safety traffic, there's obviously, a risk of accidentally creating a incident where they transmit. But I don't know. Do you think that, I guess we'll open it up with the first question, but do you think radios have become too feature rich for newer operators who don't fully understand everything that they might be able to enable in the menu?
I don't think they're too
Was
feature rich. I think people take it for granted that they're going to be able to figure it out, or they don't understand the features and
Right.
what they can do. And I don't think people take the time to really learn it.
Some of them are complicated, and even if you look through you hear the old saying, just read the manual, but sometimes those are not very informative. They don't describe exactly what every feature does. And I mean, there are times where I've gone through manuals. I'm like, I don't even know what this means. And
if
I'm
you
like
can even
immersed in
understand the
this stuff.
Chinglish that many of
Yeah,
them are
the
written
Chinglish.
in.
Yeah.
Those
I-
damn Yinzers, those Pittsburghers, they're good for nothing up there. So I actually did some work when I worked for Motorola. I actually did some work at some of the Allegheny County 911 centers over the years.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. And just doing coax runs and stuff like that. The
Right.
reconfiguring. But, that's not necessarily my hometown, but just next county south of me. From where
Do
I
you
was.
think? I don't know. You think manufacturers should make features like an audio relay, or maybe even crossband repeat, or just whatever sort of automatic retransmission feature the radio might come with, harder to activate accidentally? So, like, do you think they should bury it in the menu or something?
No, because people still find it. It's just they don't understand how to use it.
I don't know
sometimes
anything
think
about
some of
that
the
specific
displays-
radio.
I'm sorry, Drew. What did you say?
Well, I don't think we have enough information to know about that. I don't know about that specific radio. Is it already pretty
It's
well
a
locked down? Did he just get lost in a menu system? I got to admit, I get pretty lost in some of these
it's a
DMR.
it's a BTEC UV Pro, I think. I'll have to
Okay,
look it up.
that's not DMR, but yeah, that is a feature-packed radio. I'm
I
aware
don't
of
think it's
that.
a DMR, is it? I don't
No,
even know.
it's not. It's analog.
I have a suspicion that he was just playing around with it and did not turn it off, or thought he had turned it off and it was not turned off. That feature, the crossband repeat or simplex, whatever it was.
Which could have happened to any of us. I don't even know. I don't know if he's a new operator or experienced operator, but I think even an experienced operator would be vulnerable to that. So as far as should these manufacturers lock it down, I mean,
What was his call sign?
I don't know if
I
it should be.
intentionally didn't blast it out because I don't want to be a dick. It's in the article. It's got his name and all that stuff. I was just like, well, no sense
we can look it
on.
up.
I don't want to kick a dude when he's down.
Yeah, just text it to me.
Yeah. I'll send you the article.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So Terrence, are you implying
Yeah, it's
that?
got his call sign and his name. But
Are you
what now?
implying that you think manufacturers should be lawfully required to hide these behind a code or something like that, or?
No. It was just kind of a general question I had because I mean, every time something happens with, whether it's firearms or radios, there's always this like knee-jerk reaction, I think, to make things more difficult so that the bad thing doesn't happen again, which I understand. But I'm also someone that's like very like anti-censorship, and locking things down to me is a form of censorship. So I don't know. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but
No, I agree. Somebody kneecaps
absolutely
himself
agree.
while they're cleaning their gun with an unloaded pistol. I don't know as if that means
Yeah.
that I should be punished with more weird features that drive up the cost and complexity of my pistol, right? So
yeah.
I agree with you. But I do think that we have an obligation to learn from these incidents when we hear about them and just become more mindful of the consequences of perhaps using a feature accidentally, inappropriately, or negligently that could cause interference. This
years
must.
ago,
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Draw. And you weren't finished.
Well, I was thinking this must have gone on for a bit because like we'll get occasionally somebody will have a radio on. I'm guessing probably a volunteer firefighter or something, and they'll be out like chainsawing or snowmobiling, and we'll hear that for an hour or something, and then it stops and they figure it out, and we just move on. So this must have been going on for quite a while for this to actually have been reported.
For them to track him down and
Yeah.
triangulate where he's at. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I was wondering that myself. Give me 1 second. I'm just
Well, if it was this amateur traffic, he probably was saying his call sign, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been too hard to find him. But
so I will I'll throw his information in the private chat so you guys can look it up if you like. But there it is.
it would be nice if let's say he was saying his call sign over the air and it was being linearly transmitted onto the public safety airwaves. They could get on QRZ. I'm sure there's a ham radio guy somewhere in the system who could have just got on the QRZ and shot him an email or something real quick and said, "Hey, knock it off."
I think doesn't
That would have been
QRZ
ideal.
tell you how many times your call sign's been looked up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, have you ever
His
looked
call
at your
sign's
own?
been looked up 1,406 times.
There it
So,
is.
A lot
Yeah.
less than most people, I guess.
Poor guy. I mean,
But
that
he's only
sucks.
been, let's see, he's only been licensed for just over a year. So
Oh,
he's
so he is new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Poor guy. That sucks. I
Yeah.
mean, could you
Probably not a great beginner's radio.
no.
I'm not
I
familiar
mean,
with it.
have
I
you
mean,
guys
it's a
ever
VTech.
discovered a feature on one of your radios that you didn't realize was activated?
Yeah, that damn Vox.
I'm going to blame it just being a Pittsburgher for being a Yinzer. So back before I went to the military, I worked for Motorola right out of high school, a service shop. And I had my amateur license at the time. It was, 94, 95.
Mhm.
And I was calling, I heard my buddy on his repeater. He had his own repeater, and I was calling him what I thought was on his repeater frequency, and it was actually on our public safety frequency for the county.
Yo!
Oh, really?
Whoops!
Wow.
Yeah,
Fucker!
yeah. It was on the ambulance. I believe it was on the ambulance frequency, because I was actually doing some testing with that radio through the public safety stuff just right before I got off work, and just never, because it was a dual display, I never didn't switch it over to the primary. Threw my call sign out there and everything.
You know what's going on in those ambulances? They were just sitting there waiting, listening. They were waiting for some juicy details to come across. Every now and then some colleague of mine will be like, they'll actually sit on the mic or they'll be bumping it with their leg or something, and they just be trash talking other colleagues or something, and just sitting there waiting. Just come on.
So when I worked law enforcement here in Louisa years ago now, dispatch had an open mic for like 5 minutes, and they were MFing somebody up one side and down the other.
Beautiful.
Really?
It just you could hear the phones in the background ringing. Everybody's trying to call in.
Right. Dumbass, I'm not answering that. Yeah, that's wonderful when that happens.
I don't know. So, like this guy's pretty new, what'd you say, like a year ago?
Year and a month.
I mean, for newer operators, like
It happens.
what are, in your opinions, the most important programming mistakes to avoid?
Well, I would say transmitting on public safety frequencies would be a big one.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to lock those down to listen only if you're just getting the feel for a radio, just in case.
I mean,
even
I know
the
a lot of
out-of-band
people
stuff
who-
that I have, if I have any kind of public safety frequency, I don't enable the transmit on it because I don't want to inadvertently have a radio in a pouch or sitting in the center console with the PTT pushed inadvertently, causing interference.
Do you think that
be a little
I don't
mindful
know,
of
like,
it.
you think the amateur radio community does enough to, I guess, teach people about, I'll call it safe programming practices, I guess, or do you think they just kind of assume that everyone knows?
I think might at the club level, but the amateur radio world as we know it on the internet, they're just gonna
Just
crucify
shit
you.
on the guy?
They're just gonna shit on you and
Yeah.
tell you that you're a dumbass and you should know these things, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you need to figure it out. And
What would that look like? What you're describing, the amateur radio community preparing somebody for safe programming, like publishing videos about how to properly program?
Yeah.
Because in general,
or-
I don't like programming things for other people because then they don't learn about their radio.
yeah, exactly.
I'll
Yeah,
help give some
I don't
advice
either.
or
Yeah.
steer them towards resources, but
I mean, I'll get
I
on
think
like
that's
a
a lot of it
Teams
though,
with
too,
you
is
and
people don't know how to program, and
yeah.
they don't understand the programming and all the, I don't want to say back channels, but little sidebars to every little menu that's in there.
Yeah.
You know, especially when it comes to DMR stuff. You know, people just don't know how to make code plugs.
I guess it could be videos or FAQs or something. I don't know. I mean, just kind of a
They could have
thought
a
I
class
had.
of
Well,
social
you know,
media.
I mean, you've got a lot of people that are very quick. Not everyone. This isn't everyone. I don't want to, be too broad, but there are a lot of people who are very critical of how you shouldn't do things in amateur radio as well as
What?
GMRS. And
I've never encountered this.
and I don't know, it just seemed like that was something that was probably already out there as part of that noise of criticism.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. I don't like to program things for people either, because they need to learn how to operate the radio. They need to know how to manually program it from the keypad if there is one, and then they need to figure out how to do it on the back end through a machine. But I don't know. I don't mind jumping on like a Teams meeting with somebody. I've done it before and answered questions and gone through like the menu and here's what this is and that kind of thing. But I agree, it's a little
Sure.
bit dangerous if you start programming stuff for people, because they might inadvertently jump on a repeater they're not supposed to, or who knows.
I do wonder if somebody maybe just sent him a code plug for that, or sent him a image file and he just flashed it on
Very
there
well
and thought he
could
was
be.
good to go.
Could be. That happens a lot. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're trying to get, I don't know, if you're trying to get people interested in radio, which is difficult, and maybe you're trying to get them past that threshold of just the initial programming it and getting them actually practicing with it and stuff. But people tend to share those things. But
Sure. So maybe a takeaway for us should be we're sitting down with that person and ensuring that they know what they're doing, especially if we're potentially putting them in a dangerous situation by giving them an image with some public safety frequencies on it.
now you're just being a FUD.
Am I being a FUD?
No.
Shoot me.
You'll get accused of it. Oh, you're just a
Guilty.
FUD. You just want me to follow the rules, you rule followers. There's nothing wrong with following the rules. It's just you don't want to use the rules as a cudgel on people. And I think that's where amateur radio kind of runs afoul. You've got a lot of people that jump right into the lecturing part and they forget that they were once new too. So,
Fair.
but I don't know.
Well, I definitely think rules for the use of the commons is appropriate. We have a very limited radio spectrum, so
Yeah.
a society setting up rules for the proper use, just like we do with fishing and hunting, because I don't own all the turkeys that wander across my land, so I probably shouldn't just shoot every single one that I see because I feel like it,
Right.
because they're your turkeys too, right? So having some rules about the shared property, I don't have a problem with it all, but I definitely agree that the delivery of how we help correct people, this idea of self-policing, I think is taken to mean you don't require any tact when you're policing somebody.
Yeah.
So definitely need to
I
be
think
gentle in the way we talk to people.
that's the biggest thing that I hear is the approach that people don't like, and I get it. My wife went and qualified for her CCW renewal today, and just chatting. I'm like, well, how did it go? Because she has a little bit of a different take on some of these things than I do. I'm definitely into firearms and radios and all that stuff, but she's kind of cursory interested in it. And she notices a lot of the egos and things like that, in those kinds of rooms. And it's true. And the same thing happens with amateur radio. You get some people that kind of are in such a hurry to tell you everything that they know and lecture you, they don't actually like talk to you. They're just kind of
Just
talking
talk
at you. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, you get that anywhere though. I think it's pretty relative. You get that in any hobby, or you get that in the corporate world, every job.
What is the origin of that? Is this an insecure person who needs to flex their knowledge at you rather than be a mentor, rather than?
I don't know.
I
I
think it goes
mean,
back to the beginning of humanity.
yeah,
Really.
there's some
Sure.
people
I'm
that
just
are wired
curious.
that way. I don't know. I'm sure sure you've seen it, in your industry. I'm sure there's people that probably are when they talk to you, they're more interested in telling you what they know rather than actually having a conversation with you.
Well, I think it's ubiquitous in life.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just curious what causes that? What's the source of that? When I look at that person who's you don't need more than 6 rounds, you pussy. All you need is a pump shotgun, and you rack it, and they poop their pants and run away. Like, what am I actually seeing there?
I don't know. That's a deep dive into like a aspect of human nature that I've thought about because I've often wondered about it, like in amateur radio. Like, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I first got into amateur radio, I was studying for my tech license, and like um, the first real experience I had around anyone was taking a crash course on the tech license. And so I went to this thing, and there were some cool people there, but one of the guys leading it, um, he was um, very vocal guy. And some of the people in the class actually brought their like UV5Rs because they were new too. And this dude just basically was like, "Oh, it's Chinese junk, and if you drop it," he literally said, "He's like, if you drop it, it's gonna shatter into a million pieces." And uh, which actually later on, a couple years later, kind of inspired me to do those like stress test videos. And I'm like, these aren't as fragile as everyone says, or some people say rather. Um, but that was my first experience. Was like getting told my radio was shit. I did that. I had basically made a bad choice right out of the gate into this, hobby or whatever you want to call it. And a couple of people in that class were like, "Fuck this," and they quit. They actually left. They didn't even bother to take the test. And I was like, because this guy was such a jackass. The other guy teaching it was super nice, really nice guy, and like older ham radio guy, kind of a Elmer type. And I stayed because of him, because I liked him, but ended up, taking the crash course, and then I went and took my test later on. But to answer your question, I don't know what it is about some people who do that. It's totally rude. It drives people away. It's totally insulting when people do that. And that's not the only dude, unfortunately, I've met over the past few years that was like that. The majority of people in amateur radio are really nice. Most of them are, really nice, but occasionally you come across a couple that are just that way, and you run across people that are that way in the, 2A world too.
I think it's in all aspects of our jobs and hobbies and society. And
yeah.
And I won't lie that I have engaged in that behavior in my younger years, and I recognize it as just ugly and distasteful, and I made sure to try to route that out of my own personality. I don't know what caused me to jump on with, like comes to mind, a guy at work bought a High Point, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's a shit pistol and everything." Well, actually, it's not that bad, and that's what the guy could afford. And in retrospect, that was unfair. Probably made his experience a whole lot less enjoyable. So I tried not to do kinds of things like that. But I do wonder, like somebody who is older and wiser and hypothetically more mature, like why would that person continue with that juvenile behavior?
I think in the case of gear shaming, I think people that do it are I don't think it always comes from like this bad place. I think that it's just people trying to help you avoid some of the mistakes maybe they made. Because I've come across people that have gear shamed others, and I've questioned them like, why'd you say that? And they're like, I'm just trying to help them avoid shit that I did that was stupid. And I'm like, yeah, but that's part of the learning process. Like, you got to make some bad purchases. Everyone's got to, that tries to conceal carry has got a drawer full of holsters that they cycled through that didn't work.
Sure.
You got to learn. Let's see. Oh, we got someone's throwing some shade on Jared here. Swish Outdoors and Survival. Jared isn't nice, and we'll find
That's
out why in
not
a
that's
second.
not that's not shade. That's just reporting the news.
He sent
Yeah,
his
that
dog
is-
Yoda to attack me. Is that true, Jared? Did Yoda attack this?
Yeah, but I didn't send
Seemingly
him to do
innocent
it.
person?
He just wants to play ball with them.
Which balls?
That's a fair question.
Not his own, because we cut those off a long time ago.
Oh,
Well, I'll throw this out there to the folks watching. So, have you ever accidentally programmed something incorrectly into one of your radios? And I guess also, have you ever owned one that has features you didn't fully understand at first? I know I've run across a few people that have bought HTs to monitor just general traffic. Some people want to try and monitor like public safety frequencies and stuff, but not realizing that they're not on some of the HTs that are out there. But you've got LMR, which not every radio is capable of that bandwidth. But and I think lastly, for the audience, what is the most confusing radio menu item maybe that you've ever encountered? But with that, we'll slide into some current events here. Because again, a lot's happened. When's the last one we did? February?
it's been a minute.
January, I think.
Wow, it's been that long.
Maybe.
Wow. A lot of water's run under the bridge. Let's see here. There we go. There it is. So we're on this now. So in recent weeks, as I'm sure everyone's aware, we've seen a lot of military escalation. There's been attacks on infrastructure in the Middle East, concerns about the Strait of Hormuz, and renewed fears that the conflict could continue to spill across, the Middle East and into other regions. And lately, there have been a lot of reports that regional mediators are attempting to broker a permanent ceasefire, and everyone's kind of hoping that could lead to an agreement. But it seems like every day when they announce, that there's going to be some sort of deal being brokered, that one side or the other says that that's not true, and we just kind of continue with this current state that we're in. But at the center of this dispute, there's a lot of questions. One of them is, will Iran continue moving toward nuclear capability? Is the United States going to continue using military pressure to stop that? And can shipping through the Strait of Hormuz remain open? It's been open, closed. There's been reports that it's been closed, and then our government says that that's not true. So there's a lot of confusion surrounding the shipping lanes over there. Also, is either side even politically able to compromise without appearing weak? And a lot of the articles that I've read, suggest that both sides may still see some value in negotiation, but it seems like the space for diplomacy is delicate at best, because we see continued military strikes. Israel's still part of the equation there. There's been economic disruption, and it seems like there's been a lot of public frustration growing over this. It doesn't seem like the United States and Iran it's not that they simply disagree on one issue. They disagree on sanctions, nuclear development, Israel, regional militias. There's shipping and just general military presence in the Gulf. And they also disagree over the future political order of the Middle East. And so when you look at all of those things, it's obvious that there's a pretty deep lack of trust on both sides. Each side believes the other has repeatedly broken promises, acted in bad faith, or used diplomacy only to gain leverage. And so one of the biggest questions is whether both countries still have a way to de-escalate. An off ramp might include something like limited sanctions relief, restrictions on Iran's enrichment capabilities, some agreements on maritime security, things like that. I think even if those options exist, the challenge is mostly probably political because neither side wants to appear weak. Iran doesn't want to look like it folded under pressure, and the United States doesn't want to look like it allowed Iran to edge closer to a nuclear weapon. And so, if diplomacy continues to collapse, the likely future is, it's not necessarily a full scale invasion, but it might look like more proxy attacks, missile strikes. Maybe there will be cyber attacks by various state actors, more sanctions, more attacks on shipping and energy infrastructure, and just general instability across several countries. And that could probably create long term conflict. And it's going to be costly, dangerous, and probably pretty difficult for either side to truly win. And all of that really just to say, is this fundamentally a dispute over nuclear weapons, do you think? Or is the nuclear issue only really one piece of a larger regional struggle? Because our issues with Iran go back a long time. None of this stuff's new. But I don't know. What do you think that there's an off ramp?
I think that this is much deeper than Iran having nuclear weapons. I think it has more to do with keeping China out of any future invasions and fights.
Yeah,
is my take on it. And I think the negotiations, so back up a little bit. One day we're fighting, the next day we're not. The next day we're not fighting, the next day we're fighting again. And it got to the point where I just stopped paying attention to it because it changed.
Yeah,
we're friends, we're not friends. We're talking, we're not talking on an almost an hourly basis, it seemed like. So I really stopped just paying attention to it. Not overall, but just I get tired of it. But I think it goes so much deeper. I think it has more to do with negotiations that are going to limit China's ability to wage war, either on Taiwan or even cyber attack types, proxy attacks on U.S. interests, not necessarily here.
Swish says, I believe there are multiple agendas: nuclear, China, Zionists defending Israel, etc. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot to this. I mean, and that's what I think makes negotiations and just getting out of this and turning all this off very difficult, because what do you think a face-saving compromise for both countries even looks like? And don't forget, you've got Israel in there, which I don't know if they're like part of the negotiations or what, because it seems like even if we agree to a ceasefire, Israel's saying, well, we weren't part of that agreement. We're gonna bomb Iran in spite of that. So it's very difficult to understand what part they're playing in the negotiations, if any. And I just don't know how either Washington or Tehran can get out of this with saving face.
I think Israel has their own agendas, and if they align with what we're doing, they're okay, and they don't go forward with certain attacks or whatever. But if what we had negotiated or proposing to negotiate or whatever doesn't interest them or have them in their best interest, that they're going to continue to do what they're going to do regardless.
I mean, we've had issues going on with them for a very long time. You know, in recent memory, you've got, what was it, was it 1984 that there was the barracks attack on the
83.
something like that? Yeah, on the Marines, someone drove a car bomb, you know, into their barracks basically, and you know, we've had really tense diplomatic relations with them for a very long time.
You had the hostage thing in
Mhm.
78, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think the current tensions are more dangerous than those previous crises between our countries?
Let's certainly come to a head, obviously, with this. I'm still unclear as to what the actual goal is. We hear some chatter about nuclear weapons. Quite truthfully, they've had enough uranium enrichment for a long time to have made a nuclear weapon. You only need, I think, above 20% enrichment to actually make a nuclear weapon, and they're upwards of 60% last I had heard. So they could have made one. I understand 90% is better, but this idea of like, well, they're 2 weeks away, they're gonna, you know, well, they already had the stuff. So I'm faced with so much conflicting, weird, strange information that I just don't buy what I'm being told right now. So what
Yeah.
I'm left with is, how do I maneuver myself and my family and the people around me to get ahead of whatever hard times, because I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So we can already see some signs of instability in the supply lines for just the consumer goods that we use, and the manufacturing precursors, things of that nature. So, but we already have the tools to deal with this. We dealt with this from 2020 to, I don't know, probably up to 24. Right, so we've already got some practice in how to maneuver through this. So right now, medical gloves, nitrile gloves, we already know that like a massive percentage, I think it's 1/5 of the world's, or greater, of the world's supply of nitrile gloves is made in Malaysia. Well, Southeast Asia gets a lot of fuel from the Middle East there, and that is being disrupted right now. So it's the supplies of gloves are starting to dry up. So if you need those for your operation, get those now. So just like with the pandemic, if you think you need something, get it now. Don't wait, and get ready, because I just don't see this getting better.
Do
And
you think that this will?
we are also ahead of hurricane season too. So think of what
Yeah.
other disruptions are going to coincide with this. We
Yeah.
know sailing bags every year, as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, sailing bags will get hit, because all of those are made in like Puerto Rico or something. So get your sailing now, lay in a stockpile now, so that you can weather that kind of storm. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just kind of wondering if you thought that, you know, this will end up in a larger regional war, or do you think that's even avoidable?
I have
think it's
no
gonna
idea.
expand.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's going to expand somewhat, especially navally in the seas.
How could we even decide that? How could we even predict that? Because we're being fed right now is bullshit. None of
Right.
this information we're receiving is reliable. They've got a quantum heartbeat detector that can go 40 miles. That is such bullshit. It's a lie, and it's a
Speaking of
clear
BS,
lie.
Swish says, still waiting on the WMDs. They said we're in Iraq to show up. We all are.
Right.
Because that was an excuse to go into Iraq. And you bring up a good point, though, Swish, because even back then, back right after 9/11, wasn't it like the State of the Union? I have to go back and fact check myself or whatever, but I thought it was after the State of the Union, and George W. Bush listed North Korea, Iraq, and Iran as like the axis of evil. And then shortly after, Wesley Clark made some kind of comment that we were going to attack like 7 countries in 5 years or something crazy like that.
Wonderful.
Go back and look. I think my memory's still working right, but I remember that happening. And unless there's some sort of Mandela effect going on with me that I don't know about. But they had mentioned Iran even way back then. And
Well, then
and
Obama
so,
got elected, and then he released sanctions on Iran.
yeah.
I can't remember if that was his first or second term that he did that.
Is
And
that when
then,
he flew in
well,
billions
then
of
they went
dollars of
after
cash on
Gaddafi.
pallets and foreign currency, and
Yeah. Then they went
because it was
after
too
Gaddafi.
expensive to keep that money in our banks, so we needed to give it to a terrorist regime.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Drew. I think a lot of the stuff that we're getting fed's BS.
So how do I
And-
make predictions? How do I make good decisions based on information that's clearly
Well-
garbage? All I can do is just assume the worst and try to maneuver myself ahead of it, just like we did with the pandemic.
Well, I mean, if diplomacy fails, what do you think the next phase of this conflict might look like?
Invasion. The Marines just put in an order for like thousands of drone jammers. Why do they need that? What do you think they're about to do?
Ground Fog, welcome, Ground Fog. I saw you say hi earlier in the chat, so I was meant to come back to you, but lots of interesting coincidences with that list. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was saying earlier. You know, I mean, I know we haven't done a live stream in a little while, and like a lot of shit's happened, but when I was trying to kind of prepare for this one, I was going back through the last like month or so, and I was just thinking there is so much shit going on right now, and it's kind of scary actually. But there's just so much going on that like it's almost impossible to talk about it all and put it into perspective. And you know, to your point, Drew, when you're getting fed a lot of BS, how are you really able to calculate what your next move is? How are you able to kind of, I don't know that predict's the right word, probably forecast.
How do you make a risk analysis
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
when all your inputs are crap? It's garbage in, garbage out.
And then
Well,
the next day, something totally off the wall happens.
Well, Switch says, you know, you can make good predictions based on history as it ultimately repeats itself. Yeah, I think that history is a good guide.
When can I look back in history and see the president of the United States praying to the Islamic God on Easter Sunday and posting photos of himself as Jesus on the Orthodox Easter? I have no idea. This is bizarre. Everything I'm seeing is bizarre, and I don't know how to make good predictions.
It's more bizarre every day.
All of my actions right now to prepare for whatever's coming are defensive, extremely defensive.
I think for Trump, if you go back and listen to some of the things he said in the past, I think
like when he said just recently that he's willing to sacrifice his rights in exchange for security or for the army or something.
I didn't hear that.
Or is that weird? Oh, because that was kind of a big one.
No, what I was going to say is that if you go back and just kind of listen to some of the things that he said before he ran, I think before the first term, I think someone was asking him, you know, like if you were president, you know, and you had to, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, if we got into conflict, basically, you know, what would be your communication style? How would you, you know, what would you do essentially? And he said something along the lines of he'd want to be unpredictable. He wouldn't want people to know what he was going to do. So I think, to me, I think a lot of things that he says are geared towards that. I think that he's probably intentionally trying to not let on what his next move is. And I understand that. I get it.
There's unpredictability and tactics, and there's also just unstable, bizarre behavior that causes the people you are leading to lose their faith in you.
I think it can come off as erratic.
It's irrational.
Yeah, I think that that's when some people kind of pause and they're like, "Well, wait, what's going on here?" But I mean, I'm not looking, and I'm not saying one thing's right over the other. That's my interpretation is all. You know, based on things you've said in the past. But I don't know. You're right. There's no real guide for this either. There's a lot of things that are kind of happening for the first time, I think. You know, starting a conflict with Iran, probably nothing new. But the way that we're handling it probably is. Swish says Trump's a businessman. He's trying to run this conflict like he does a business deal. Part of business is advertising. Yeah, I think that there's some elements of truth to that. I think he's probably, it's like anything. I mean, you kind of fall back on what you know, what your experience is. Maybe that's what's happening here. You know, I
What
don't
type
know.
of advertising? I'm confused by that comment.
I interpret that as, you know, he is kind of a marketer. So, like branding people, for instance, you know, he called Marco Rubio the boy in the bubble.
Okay, or like New Scum or whatever.
Mhm.
All right, well that's cool. That's not exactly what I'm seeing here. Maybe Swishel or whoever that was will have some more follow up.
That's how I interpret that comment, but I could be wrong. He says he has no experience in armed conflict. And I'm not saying his advertising is good. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean, it's hard to be objective with all the things that are happening. I'll say that. But I don't know. I mean, you know, if you had to, based on what we're seeing right now, you know, if you had to predict where our relations are, let's say 5 years after his second term's over, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, I guess it probably depends on if Vance gets into office or somebody else, but I'm wondering if things are going to cool down, and they kind of need to, because I don't think that having an ongoing conflict with Iran and constant disputes over the Strait of Hormuz are a good thing long term. And I think it's definitely a flashpoint that could, you know, pop up again at any moment. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think if he doesn't show some very positive results in the next month or so, we're going to lose the midterm elections to the Democrats, and then the next presidency is going to be a Democrat.
All the same people, though. I mean, does it matter?
It is. It really is.
It's the same fucking people. Like, they all do the same things. It doesn't seem to matter like who gets into office. Everyone's always like, "Oh, I'm not going to start any wars," and then they start a new war.
Right.
I mean,
Well, that drives a lot of my investment strategy, because the only people who love war more than Republicans are Democrats. So they're all going to just always kill people all the time. So might as well, you know, throw some money in Lockheed.
well, I mean, I don't think the Democratic Party is upset that they've got a conflict going on with Iran. There's some war hawks in the Democratic Party as well, just like there are in the Republican Party. I don't know. Like, I don't think we should be policing the world, but that's just my opinion.
I would just love it if he had made his case to Congress, because that's really our decision through our elected representation, and he would make his case. And yeah, there probably was a really good reason to go to war. But,
Swish says he
that
needs
case was never
to
made.
shut up on social media. That's a big
Yes.
issue. This is the first.
Or you know what?
conflict
Have
with social
somebody
media
like run
is
these posts
going
by somebody first.
Like a lawyer.
Hey, Mr. President, it kind of looks like the Catholic artwork of Jesus there with your face on it. Maybe we reconsider this one, sir.
You know, to him, social media is the fireside chat to FDR. You know, like
Okay.
radio, and FDR was, you know, he looked at radio as a way to reach out to the common man, and I think that that's what this guy's doing. But I agree, it needs to be filtered through somebody. I don't know.
Just have his wife roll over in bed and say, Melania, honey, how do you think this looks? And she can go, oh my God, no, do not post that. And then, yeah, and then we'll all be better off.
You know, that's the thing about being that high up in power. Eventually, you have a lot of people around you that just agree with you all the time. Oh yeah, that's wonderful. That looks great. You should
Yeah.
post that. There's no
excise
sanity.
people.
There's no sanity check there. No real friend that's like, I wouldn't fucking do that if I was you.
Yeah, so maybe he's engineered that environment around him where everybody just has to say, yes, those
I
invisible
don't-
robes look wonderful, Mr. President.
I don't know if he's, I mean, maybe I'm sure there's some blame to go around for everybody, but like, look at anybody that's like wealthy or in power. Like, look at the people around that. Did you see that Diddy documentary? you watch that? You got to
No.
watch that if you haven't seen it. Go watch it.
Is it on YouTube?
It's on
Where's that?
Netflix. I
No.
think 50 Cent produced it, but basically, I don't think 50 Cent's a fan of Diddy's, but
Okay.
go watch it because it's an interesting dive into somebody that's super wealthy and famous, and all the people around him are yes men. They don't disagree with him because he's their meal ticket. And I mean, he's got a guy that follows him while he's walking to put his like chain on him, so he doesn't have to like stop and do his own chain. So, I mean, when you've got that kind of money, you're probably used to getting what you want, and you're used to having the people around you not be adversarial in any way. Yeah, like his gold chain.
Oh, like a
Yeah.
necklace? He can't put
Yeah.
that on himself? All right, whatever.
He can, but he has a guy that does it, and it's really weird because there's footage of him like walking to an elevator down a hallway and like some guy running to like and struggling to put his chain on him. It's weird. But
Huh.
basically, I mean, when you've got that much money and you've got that much influence and stuff, I mean, you don't get people that tell you no.
There's
a shame.
people need to be told no, though.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that need to be told no, and he probably needs someone that helps him with his social media that tells him, no, this is a bad idea and you should probably not post this on Easter. But
Oh dear.
but I'll throw this out to the those watching before we jump into the next topic. But do you think our two countries, Iran and the United States, are headed towards a larger war, or do you think they'll eventually negotiate their way out of this? And if so, what does an acceptable compromise look like to you? Do you think that the United States and Iran will be adversaries in 10 years from now? I think, one of the hardest parts of any long running conflict is that eventually both sides stop thinking about how to win and start thinking about, how not to lose. And maybe that's where we're headed. That may be the current state of affairs, for all we know. Neither side wants to back down. Nobody wants to appear weak, and nobody trusts anyone. And I think that's very difficult when you're trying to bring people together to communicate and figure out what a peaceful solution forward would be. And I think the question now is whether Washington and Tehran still believe there is more to gain from confrontation than compromise, or whether both sides are finally reaching the point where they need an off ramp before maybe the situation gets much worse, which it appears to be getting worse. And back to your comment a little bit ago, Drew, that everything that we're being fed's total BS. I'm sure we're not getting the full picture of where negotiations really stand, if Iran's even, agreeing to talk to us. We're being told that they are, and then a few days later, or even hours later, they'll post something on social media saying that there are no negotiations. So I don't know. I don't know where this is headed, but it does dovetail into our next topic. And for many years, there have been a lot of people that have stated that they likely believe that Iran has the capability to launch a significant cyber campaign against U.S. targets, especially if conflicts like this one escalate. And probably the more realistic concern is not like a single catastrophic cyber Pearl Harbor type event, but maybe like a coordinated series of disruptive attacks against multiple sectors at once. The Rand Corporation actually has a few studies on this. There's a lot of organizations that talk about this. CISA is one of them. This article, but likely targets might include, utilities and water systems, energy infrastructure, transportation and logistics networks, You've got hospitals and healthcare systems, financial institutions, government agencies, and last but not least, communications providers. Swish says, I got to jump off, gents. Good stuff here. Have a good night. You have a good evening too. Thanks for jumping on. But Iran spent years building their cyber capabilities, and they've in the past targeted industrial control systems, water facilities, banks, and other critical infrastructure, probably as probably to probe what the response would be. But US agencies such as the FBI, NSA, they've warned that, basically Iranian actors may target vulnerable US networks and entities of interest. Wasn't it like a week ago or so that some lady was arrested in LA because she was selling like drones on behalf of Iran or something? But
I wasn't
mean,
aware of that one. They did hit Stryker, I believe, major medical device manufacturer.
oh, did they? Okay,
Yeah.
that one I didn't. Yeah, like again, there's so
believe
much
that was
going on;
Iran.
it's hard to even keep up. But a likely near-term attack. If you look at a lot of these articles from things like CISA and other organizations, they say that very likely near-term attacks would probably be, like denial of service type attacks, data theft and leak. We're already seen some of that, in the past. Ransomware, psychological operations using stolen personal information, that's been going on for a few years. And basically just attacks against poorly secured infrastructure or remote access systems. And recent reporting suggests that Iran aligned actors are already increasing, things like reconnaissance, and they're conducting probing activities against our infrastructure. And so the bigger question is whether Iran would act alone. They almost certainly have relationships with proxy hacker groups, probably sympathetic hacktivists, criminal ransomware operators, and possibly indirect assistance from maybe other state actors. And that doesn't necessarily mean like Russia or China would openly participate in attacks on the United States, because that would probably be an act of war, but they could provide technical knowledge, malware, intelligence, maybe like satellite data, or even just something as simple as like a safe operating space for these proxy groups. And so, that leads us to, what is like in the first 24 hours of something like this happening, the most visible activity would probably not be like power grids collapsing or entire cities going dark like in the movies. It would likely begin with confusion. You'd see maybe like a small wave of website outages, again, denial of service attacks, social media rumors. You'd have people posting fake screenshots, maybe even leaked employee data, website defacements, probably phishing attacks against government agencies. And this would go across several industries, government, like utilities, hospitals, probably major companies. And probably Iran and Iran-aligned groups often favor actions that create fear, uncertainty, and media attention pretty quickly. And that may be a strategy if something like that were to happen. So I think that the possibility is real. We've been warned enough by, like the FBI, the NSA, all of these different organizations. And so the longer that this conflict drags out, do you think that the likelihood of cyber attacks against our infrastructure are going to increase?
I'm honestly surprised that it hasn't happened on a wider scale already. That would be
good.
Well, I guess, yeah, sure. It could be a ticking time bomb just waiting to detonate. But we've seen some really limited stuff, like, attacks on individual companies that they can recover from. And then like there was a lot of confusion about Benjamin Netanyahu possibly being dead. Obviously he wasn't, but that was effective for a little bit at sowing some confusion. But these have all been very limited. Why would they not
That's
be
a really good
going hard?
example of what I was saying a second ago, like things like fake screenshots. So basically just
Sure.
disinformation being distributed on social media. And, you know,
But we can recover from
unfortunately,
that. These are all limited, very limited.
yeah, it's
I
just there's
think
so many
it's
people
more
that
of
want to.
an information gathering thing to see where people's interests and allegiances kind of lie, see what kind of information people are going to give up.
So they make some Lego videos with some rap songs. Like it's just
Yeah, really. I mean,
kind of pathetic. I'm underwhelmed by I thought that their cyber capabilities were going to be formidable from what everything
well,
I've
I
read
don't think
leading up to this.
I think, like I said, I think they're still in the information gathering phase. I don't think they're really ready to.
They tend to be hyperbolic too. Like they'll say things like, "Oh, tomorrow you'll see something happen that you'll talk about for centuries," and then nothing happens.
The big
Nothing.
surprise or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just as, you know, um, hyperbolic as we are at times.
I mean, from what I understand, they're not a poor country. So why haven't they got on the dark web and just hired hackers all over the globe to sow chaos? Like that seems like that would be a very low barrier for entry into that type of assault.
Yard Sale says, I think it will only be a pause on Iran's behalf. Their main focus is the destruction of Israel and the United States. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as long as Israel exists over there, they're always going to be fighting with each other. It's the Hatfields and McCoys. No one really remembers why the conflict got started, why there's so much bad blood. They just know that they all hate each other. And I don't know that that's ever going to go away. And so when I was asking, you know, what do you think it'll look like in 5 or 10 years? I'm thinking it's going to be more of the same. I don't think that any of this will ever stop until one side just destroys the other.
Or abruptly pulls out. So you asked for a prediction. There's my prediction. Based on past events, I think this war will drag on 1 to 30 years until administrations change hands enough and America abruptly pulls out and all of our allies in that area get annihilated and we leave them a very handsome gift of advanced military equipment that you and I are not allowed to own. That's my prediction. It's on video now. Let's circle back to this whenever this concludes, and
we'll
see how
write it
wrong I
down.
am.
I think Iran's going to take us over by infiltrating our elections and having more Islamic people voted into our government system.
Hook and Ladder says they're helping Iran in some fashion. Yeah, I think that Iran's definitely getting some sort of assistance, probably material assistance from, you know, maybe like China and North Korea and, you know, various people that they've established relationships with. I don't think that's outside, you know, the realm of possibility. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that. I think that what I'm wondering, and it's kind of the same thing that you said, you know, if they do have all this cyber capability, why haven't they used it yet? Either they don't have it or they're really patient. But I don't know that it's the latter. But I don't know. I mean, you know, if they legitimately did have the cyber capability to disrupt our critical infrastructure, I mean, in the first 24 hours of something like that, like a cyber attack campaign, what do you think the average person would actually notice first? You know, would it be power outages or websites going down, social media rumors, so disinformation campaigns, or do you think there would be service disruptions, or do you think that their capabilities are BS?
I think there would be some social media influence put out, and then all of a sudden social media sites go down to where you can't comment or post anything until they can get it fixed.
Why would they remove that weapon though? Why would they You know what I mean? Like they shut down Twitter through some sort of
I don't think they shut it down. I think
ransomware, and why would they? I mean, they need that to spread all these
I
Lego
think they leave
videos.
it. I think they leave it up. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. I think they leave it up. I think they're going to inundate it with all kinds of disinformation, and then shut down portions of it to where people can interact on it. So the last thing that they see is all this disinformation that they put out 6 hours ago or 24 hours ago, and that's all people go on.
I don't know the answer to this, but I mean, I've read a lot of different articles about what we think their capabilities are, and it kind of seems to vary, but I wonder if they could realistically act alone, or if they really would need help from proxy actors. You know, or I don't know, maybe like sympathetic activists, and also got indirect support from other countries if they were actually to really do something like that. Like, I really do wonder, like, what they're really capable of. I mean, in the past, they've done things like, you know, obtained the private information of government employees, stuff like that. But so far, they really haven't done anything that I think anyone would deem as disruptive. So, like, you know, GPS still works. The trains are running on time. You can still use your credit card at a grocery store. You know, the power grid's still up. So, like, I think when people think in terms of like a cyber attack, they imagine something like that. And I just wonder if, like, it's really possible that a country could really pull off something really massive.
I think they could get something started on their own. I don't know if they would be able to sustain it on their own, because it would be a logistical thing, more or less, for them to sustain it for any period of time.
That movie, Leave the World Behind, was kind of interesting. A lot of people were very critical of it because they felt it was kind of, they didn't like the social commentary part of it, which, you know, but I thought it was an interesting concept, because basically the idea was that a country would do what you're saying, get it started, get a cyber attack going, where you've got a lot of misinformation, you've got a lot of systems disrupted, just enough to where the population basically got scared and turned on each other and essentially finished the job for them.
Could attacking infrastructure shoot themselves in the foot? Because right now, like, we see the gas prices rising, we're like, I hate Trump, but they start shutting down the power to hospitals, and people start dying domestically. We start really feeling the pain. Do we then
that could turn people
Iran
against him
instead of Trump? Yeah. So I wonder if maybe there's some strategy behind going light on the cyber attacks.
I don't know. I mean, you know, anything like that could backfire. I agree. But I mean, what worries you more, like a highly sophisticated attack on maybe like one target, or do you think dozens of smaller ones are more effective? Like if GPS went down, let's say, like they were able to,
and then
somehow,
aircraft started falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
And we all know somebody who died in this massive airplane crash day.
That's going to shut down air traffic for probably a couple days at the least.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't think it's the thing that it's shutting down. I think the strategy would be like, if communication systems, banking portals, or like emergency alert systems were disrupted, that is the thing that basically leads to public trust breaking down. That's kind of what your goal would be. It would be to get people to lose trust in the systems that they're used to using every day. That's probably a bigger psychological trick to pull off on people than, you know, just taking down, you know, like the banking system or something. Actually getting people to doubt what they're used to using every day, getting people to doubt stability in the system. I think that that's something that would cause a lot of fear. What do we got here? Let's see. Hook and Ladder says, I think it's all planning, the same as how a criminal plans, right? They watch and check responses to different situations to see how long they have to complete their act. Yeah, I think that there's probably been a lot of probing activities. I wouldn't doubt that. When they get that information, then they act on the research. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. But I mean, at what point do you think a cyber attack becomes serious enough that we would consider it an act of war? So, like, is there like one or two things that they would have to take down to where, we actually were to the point where we declare war?
I think it would have to be on some kind of national or federal level that it would affect for it to be an act of war. I don't think targeting a hospital in a major city like LA or Chicago or whatever is gonna do it. If they even an entire hospital system that would be like statewide, I don't think would be enough to do it. I think that's still too isolated. I think they would have to affect something on a fairly large regional, or national level.
Well, even 9/11 wasn't, we didn't declare war when that happened. Pearl Harbor, we declared war. We asked, basically Congress drafted a formal war declaration. And during 9/11,
did we have an actual state actor for 9/11? It wasn't really a state actor, though. It was
well, they bombed Iraq. I mean, we had Iraq, Afghanistan, and proceeded to go on like a 10-year
rampage.
Yeah. I would think that if you're going to do that, you would just put a ring on it, wouldn't you?
They didn't before. I don't think they'll do it again.
Yeah. I don't know. So if, let's say something does happen, like let's say there's like some major cyber incident. Let's say it happens this week. Do you think most Americans are prepared for, maybe like 48 or 72 hours of disruptions to, maybe there's disruptions to communications and banking and healthcare systems? Just those
No,
things.
but I know our viewers are ready for it. You guys,
are they?
head of the vanguard, leading the charge for communication security. All you guys got your backup comm system set up. You got some
Right.
cash at home, some food stored,
Water.
gas
Your
cans
crossband
filled out
repeat ready
back.
for your crossband repeat ready to transmit on the public safety frequency.
Absolutely.
Well, hot dang, look at that. Rant strategies. What's going on there? What's going on, dude? How have you been?
What's up, man?
It's been a while since we
about him a
chatted
lot.
with you. I hope
He
all-
just posted a video about the shooting yesterday, right before we got on air. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It looked like a good one. I'm curious to hear his commentary.
White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
What
have
a
to check.
bizarre situation.
Well, again, like we were talking about history as a guide. That's never happened. Someone running into the White House Correspondents' Dinner armed, shooting at Secret Service. That's not.
It's an escalation.
I don't think that's anything anyone thought would happen.
I'm fascinated to find out if this guy was just a wacko or if he actually was
31 and he's
radicalized.
Is it Torrance, California? Something like
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah, he's from California. I forget what city, but it's like 31 years old.
He's a teacher,
And-
I think.
Is he?
I think so.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone, I don't think it occurred to anybody except maybe like the Secret Service because they have to be cautious about everywhere they go. But I don't think it ever occurred to anyone that some guy would run into that event and do that.
I honestly don't know how. I don't know if the Secret Service Let me give you an example. I'm aware of a YouTube channel right now, and this man posts comments every day that he's going to murder the president and members of the cabinet and celebrities, and he's going.
Is that guy
Everyone's
still
going to
posting?
die. He
has
is
a
still
website,
posting to
right?
this day. He has a website. He posts most of his threats. He's threatened his family, attorneys. He has a literal kill list. I've reported this to the FBI, the law enforcement where I think he lives. I reported it to the Secret Service. I spoke with a Secret Service agent on the phone. This was months ago. I am continuing to watch this. I log all of his stuff onto archive.org, and he is. I have no idea if they even give a damn. I mean, but
But is he really a credible threat, though? Or is he just some wackadoo spouting off, inventing, and running his mouth?
Well, I guess you're a wackadoo until you're not.
Right.
I mean, we saw that shithead who tried to shoot Trump at his golf course. I mean, that guy's just wacky, but somehow he had the means to make this happen.
Was he
So
running his mouth beforehand?
I don't remember that specific detail of it, but I don't know why
I'm
that
sure,
would matter
I'm
if he
sure
was
your
or
little
wasn't.
friend is under some kind of surveillance, and they're tracking him.
Okay, maybe, but I would have thought. I guarantee.
What did you?
If
want
you
to see
started
happen?
posting that same thing, somebody would be at your door tomorrow saying, "Hey, Jared, let's have a talk."
I think everybody probably gets
come on
a visit
down.
at one point or
Get
another
into my
that,
nice car.
that does that. Don't you?
I don't know. I just don't know.
And we wonder why we always hear he was on our radar after the fact.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm
How many
continuing to
people do you
log
think-
all of these posts, and yeah, hopefully.
How many of these guys do you think are like that out there, that like say this kind of stuff, kind of go to the links that he does? I mean, because eventually if there's enough of those people, like it kind of overwhelms the system.
I think
You
they
know?
also have to play the legal,
You have
the
enough
legal
agents to
juggling
put up
act
with people.
as what they're going to charge somebody with. If they're going to charge somebody with something, they need it to stick, for one, and they also need it to have some
I've been making sure they've got lots of evidence. It's in a durable format.
They also have to make sure that the sentence is going to be long enough to deter. I don't want to say deter, that's not the right word, but to mitigate something not happening for the next 15, 20 years. Are they only going to put them in jail for 2 years for what little bit they have? Or can they put it all together after a certain amount of time and put them away for 15 or 20 years? I think there's a lot of legal juggling.
Yeah, that makes
going
sense.
on with stuff like that too.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope they're not just being negligent and ignoring this.
I would, you know, as much content as that guy puts out, I doubt he's being ignored. He has a website. I mean,
yeah,
that's taking the extra step to make sure that people are hearing your message when you create a website.
Do we know what city he's in?
I have some suspicions.
I'm sure he's being watched. I'm sure he's actually being physically watched. Maybe not 24 hours a day, but I'm sure they have some kind
Hook
of
and Ladder says they wouldn't make it to his door. I mean, I'm sure that there's thousands of people every year that they're just having a bad time and say some shit, and you know, they're just mouthing off, and they probably get a visit. But I doubt many of them really mean what they say, like meaning they're not going to act on it. And I think some people are mentally ill, and I think that there's this very small percentage that probably means what they say. This guy, who knows where he falls, what bucket he's in. Maybe he's mentally ill.
I guarantee he's mentally ill.
Credible threats that would be out there are the ones that don't say anything.
That's like people that commit suicide. A lot of them, you know, are later on, their friends and family are like, oh, you know, I never would have seen that coming.
Right.
And I think that's true with people who do this kind of thing. You know, they're the real serious ones probably don't talk about it. It's my guess. Maybe they make like a journal or something, but Ground Fox says planner and AI, the laws
Palantir.
being in place and social media control are changing the scope of on our radar in many ways. Yeah. Yeah, technology is it's changing the landscape of how we do things, how we approach stuff.
This man's threats are so specific. It would be hard to imagine some type of AI algorithm not picking up on that.
Yeah.
And I know there are national security algorithms that scrape the internet for these types of open
I'm
threats.
there
So
are. Yeah.
I am just I don't know what I expect to happen. I'm not a law enforcement professional, but this just seems like, yeah, it's probably time to do something.
You
It's
have
getting
shared
worse.
the things that he has posted and said, with Jared, myself, and a few others. So we've all seen what this guy's put, and it's egregious. If I had a next door neighbor that was doing
You
and
wouldn't
saying
let your
those,
kids play outside.
no, I'd don't blame you for, basically, raising the red flag and saying this guy's, there's something wrong there. I don't know if this is a case where this guy needs some help. Probably does.
Yes.
I don't know what kind of help that would be, but
And intervention of some type needs to take place.
yeah. But I agree with you. When you see the things or read the things that he's posted, you do have to say something. It's like if someone's like, it's like, again, I'll go back to the suicide analogy. Like if someone says, they're going to kill themselves, you kind of have to take them at their word and do something. Whether that means telling somebody or something, but making sure that they don't.
As a healthcare professional, if you tell me that you're going to kill yourself, I have to take action. I just cannot leave that scene and be like, well, I think he's joking.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't.
Well, you don't know.
He's just having a bad day. I still have to take action. So
now this guy's posted enough stuff to where it seems like he's having a lot of bad days.
Yeah. So I bring that up to say it's very difficult to have confidence in the Secret Service and their ability to mitigate or address threats.
How many people do you think they have working these cases that
I have no idea,
investigate them and then actually send out people to talk to whoever's, making
no
threats?
idea. I do not live in that world, so
couldn't be that many. I mean,
they have offices in all the major cities.
Yeah, but if there's enough people making threats that get reported every year, like wouldn't it overwhelm the system at some point? Overwhelm the government's ability to like respond to all of them timely. Just because you have limited people to do so.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know what type of workload they're inundated with. I definitely have respect for that. They definitely would have to triage those calls out, but
yeah,
damn, this is bad.
I bet just about every keystroke and website and interaction your little buddy has on the internet is being recorded somewhere.
Okay. So when do we do something about it?
If you're on a list,
when he shows up at the next correspondent dinner.
If you're on a list because of your Amazon purchases, I'm sure he's on a list. So probably a more serious list.
Yeah.
That's
we'll
my
see.
guess. I hope that,
something.
I hope that guy's not serious. I hope that, I hope he's just a person that's struggling, that gets some help and it doesn't escalate. But I think you did the right thing by calling it out. What is Rant saying? Got to be a lot less than IRS filings, and they find a way to audit people, so they have the resources. Yeah, if you make if you send somebody more than $500, they're gonna look at you. They want to know. But yeah, I mean, you got a point though. I mean, this could be the next guy that runs into a event like the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You never
Or
know.
shows up at the golf course.
Well, okay, like
or
the guy that just did this. So he's like,
Going to the White
Pennsylvania.
House gate.
yeah, he's like 31 years old, lives in California, and I'm curious if he had a similar track record where he was posting a lot of stuff on social media or the internet, or if he was one of the quiet ones that just writes a manifesto to himself that gets found later on. There seemed to be a couple of different approaches that some of these people take. The ones that write
and all their social media accounts, you don't know about them beforehand,
Yeah.
but as soon as they're arrested, as soon as there's an incident,
they
they're
blow up.
arrested.
Yeah.
They go away. You never see it.
Yeah. It's a weird world we live in, and I don't know. Like Groundfog was saying, all the advancements of technology with AI and just how the internet's evolved over the years has really just kind of convoluted how we get information anymore. We're almost at a point where it's like you don't even know what's real. Like you jump on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. There's shit on there like that people post, and it's like, well, this could be true, but where are you getting this from? Or it's such that someone will report like a story, talk about, an article they read, and then it just ends up being like circular reporting where, I say it and then Drew says it and then Jarrett says it. So it sounds like it's everywhere, but it's only really coming from like one source that may or may not be credible. And it just leads to so much confusion anymore because the information now is instant. You post something, and depending on how many followers you have and how many people share it, it could reach thousands in a few minutes. So I don't know.
Just like there's a thing going around on social media about it's a picture of a tray on an aircraft carrier, a food tray, and it has very minimal amount of food on it, and everybody's saying that they're not feeding the sailors out at sea.
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, they're running low on food on,
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
They're not behind enemy lines, so to speak, in the mountains that they're inaccessible.
So the aircraft carrier, which launches airplanes that can fly long distances to other places to get supplies, that thing's running out of food. That doesn't
exactly.
add up.
Yeah, I don't think the floating city's running out of chow anytime soon. But
no.
Yeah, but that's a good point, and a good example because people post stuff like that.
And people eat it up. They believe it.
And then that's where the circular reporting happens because then other people start sharing it and then you think it's true, but it's not. It's just some bullshit that somebody posted for clicks.
If you see it enough times, it must be true.
Yeah, that's the other
only
problem.
way to win is not to play. Get off those damn platforms.
Exactly.
Dude, there's people that I had an X account just to lurk. I don't post anything. And finally I just kind of closed it down because I'm like, I'm sick of seeing this shit all the time. This is stupid. It's just the same bullshit like that all the time. There's nothing really original or new or even interesting on there, in my opinion. And then you'll see like the same people posting shit all day, and like, you'll check it in the morning and then you'll check it later on in the evening. And you're like, this motherfucker's been on here for like 17 hours just posting shit all day. I'm like, how do you have time for that? I don't get it. I guess if you make money off of it, which some people do, if you make enough money.
Yeah, and a lot of those accounts, they're AI accounts.
Yeah.
I found myself getting sucked into the doom scrolling on those things, and so I excised them from my life. YouTube's pretty much the only social media that I have left here because it brings me brings me a benefit of having a creative outlet to make videos and share some ideas. And I learned from people on here. It seems to be there's isolated pockets of toxicity, but substantially less toxic than many of the other platforms.
The only
And-
problem with YouTube is the
Censorship.
censorship. Yeah, that's the only thing that really rubs people the wrong way. Instagram's not too bad. I have an Instagram account where I just post pictures of shit.
Canned by
Yeah.
Instagram as well. Same deal. I'm just scrolling through. I'm like, well, that's stupid. I got to comment now. No, 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 no. They're making money off my enragement. Yeah, just shit posting to engagement farm people, and I'm yeah. Oh, I'm not. I don't want to make any amount of money for that person.
Groundfog says true algorithms create custom content experiences for every single user. Yeah, they do show you what they think you want to see, but in an echo chamber that you aren't constantly aware of, you become very vulnerable. Yeah, and that's how a lot of bullshit gets spread.
I think that includes AI chatbots, like that fellow who believed he was like in love with the chatbot, the Google Gemini.
Mhm.
You heard about this recently with the like Google Gemini
Yeah,
was
he-
sending him on missions, secret missions, and telling it, and then finally told him to kill himself and to be with the Gemini robot, and he would get a new body or something. Like, wow! I mean, that's an extreme example, but I think it's on the same continuum as what that fellow described in terms of the algorithm. Whatever algorithmic process you're consuming is just trying to
It definitely
keep you
feels like
engaged
we're on
longer
the
by telling you what you want to
precipice.
hear.
It definitely feels like we're on the precipice of some sort of like event
Singularity.
with technology. You know, like look at all the people aren't even going to be doing like real YouTube videos soon. I mean, it's already kind of happening now where it's just AI generated stuff.
But you know, we are seeing a backlash to that.
Skynet
you-
is live.
Are we seeing
But
a backlash? Do
I
you
think
so?
we're seeing a
Why?
social backlash. I'm trying to think. And any like that. There was a article about a bakery, and the lady was a graphics designer, but she used AI to help make a beaver that was surfing or something like that, and like people were boycotting her business and writing nasty comments on her Google reviews or something because she had a little AI section of the logo, and like I
don't
think we're
there's
seeing a
anything
social
wrong-
backlash.
I don't think there's anything wrong with using AI to make like logos and shit. Like,
But
cares?
I couldn't give a shit less about her bar. I'm not going to go to her bar, but
Yeah.
I'm using that point to illustrate like there is something of a backlash here. And yeah, I'll tell you what, when I call a business and I get the phone tree that, you know, whereas before we would press 1 for English and whatever, if it's like, say your name now, boop, I just start mashing buttons. I'm not talking to the damn robot. You give me a number tree or I'm going to talk to a person. I'm not doing this. So I think more and more people are starting to backlash against the AI shit everywhere. The shitification of our lives through AI. The inappropriate use of AI. I have no doubt that there's positive uses for AI, but it's just too much. It's too much, and I think people are getting sick and tired of it.
So I had to call a company yesterday, and I don't make phone calls hardly at all anymore. But I had to call a company yesterday to ask questions about a product I need to buy for my truck. And the very first question I asked is, "Are you a real person, or am I talking to some AI guy?" And so I ended up it was a real person, but I was asking very hard questions that I don't think AI could have answered
You know, AI for
about a product that I had questions about.
as like a general chat bot or something, you know, on a product, I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think that at some point, you're right. You do need to be able to get in touch with a live person that's knowledgeable about that thing.
Well, I'm not
Um,
calling anyone for a simple problem. Usually I have an issue that is so complex it exceeds my ability to troubleshoot it. I need to talk to
Well,
somebody
that
who's
was one of
capable of
the
that
like in your
dynamic thought.
industry, in the medical industry, one of the hopes for AI was to be able to diagnose diseases and you know, you feed people symptoms into a
all AI is a conglomeration of everybody's experiences that they've inputted into a computer somewhere, and it goes.
they
through
have different language models and they
Right,
feed
it's an
in
algorithmic process, and they come up with the best. I don't want to say the best, the most popular outcome to your issue, in accordance with what everybody else's experience was that they.
But I mean, now we're seeing there's a lot of just AI generated content anymore. And I agree with you. I think there's probably going to be a lot of pushback for it eventually, because when I'm watching, like, if I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at videos or stuff, I get annoyed when I see AI videos. It just annoys the shit out of
Sure.
me. Like, unless it's something funny or something, and it's just like a brief clip or whatever. But if the whole entire thing is like AI generated, I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, you're just making this for clicks, and you just want me to click on it and watch your.
And I'm seeing
advertisement and
videos
hate
that are advertising that none of our clips are AI generated. It's a point of advertisement for some of these. So I really do think I like the trajectory that we're on to this kind of backlash to.
Book and Ladder says much simpler time when social media wasn't really a thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's had some pros and cons. Rant says therein lies the issue. The people being hired now are far less intelligent than the AI answering the service. Yeah, I
think it's because a lot of companies don't want to invest money into a person that's going to leave in 6 months or a year, into educating them for their position. And
Yeah.
it's cheaper long-term wise for them to invest into some kind of interactive AI bot or whatever to answer their phone.
I just don't see how that's sustainable when you have complex situations that need dynamic thought processes to solve
it's just
problems.
like toll roads. You don't have toll booths anymore that are manned by people. You might have one person there for the entire system right there at that toll plaza if there's an issue that arises. But
or the check stand at Walmart, you got the auto checkers now.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the way of the world. Technology is gonna replace the more expensive, low-skilled labor. That's always happened.
Because
we're
it's
pissed
cheaper.
off that the
It's
tractor
cheaper
would
on
take
a
their
grander
jobs from.
scale for these companies to invest in that than it is to invest in the person.
Yeah. I mean,
Because the
I
person's
am.
gonna leave in 6 months, a year, or whatever, and now they have to spend that money again on somebody else, and then that person's going to leave, and they have to spend that money again on someone else.
But in a situation where you need a person and there's no substitute for a human being to do that job, I don't think you can just replace that person.
Well, true,
with
but
a computer.
If you can replace 10 people, you have 11 people, and you can replace 10 of them with a computer and keep one. You're further ahead.
Even if you automate everything, at some, you still always, for whatever reason, need some human intervention, just to spot check things and make sure they're running as intended. But to your point, eventually some of this technology is probably going to displace people out of their job. Like, the threat of burger joints being fully automated has been a threat for a long time. Auto parts stores probably, another candidate for something like that. But
well, I think that's a good candidate because most of the people that work in auto parts stores don't.
Have you been to like I had a had a Chevy Silverado just as a beater that I was driving for a long time, and I had to get like a headlight or something. I go in there and they're like, "Can I help you find something?" And I'm like intentionally like resistant to going to the counter and having them look up my vehicle on the computer, because they start asking me, what engine I've got. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I just need a fucking headlight. Who gives a shit? It's a fucking 96 Chevy Silverado. Where are the fucking headlights for this?
Yeah, I like to bring in the old part and just say, give me this one.
I like the book. Some of them still have, like the AutoZone near me still has the book, and I just go look it up in the book, and I don't want to be bothered, and I only want to talk to me, and I'll look up my own headlight, and I'll go to the rack and I'll get it myself. I don't need you to look up my entire vehicle history just to give me the wrong headlight. But I still like the old school interaction of the book. I don't like the the dude who's like 16 looking it up on the computer. I don't have time for that. I just want to get in and get out. But you're right, Jared. I think that they're probably a good candidate for that. At some point, you'll probably go to a kiosk and then you'll type in your vehicle, and then it'll hand you your part through a slot, or it'll order it for you and deliver it to your house. That's probably the future.
Like Amazon.
I don't know, man.
On Amazon like that now.
Right. So you could go online and order, but I get a lot of wisdom from guys who are manning the counter at auto parts stores. Like there's a certain rich amount of wisdom. Even that 16-year-old kid you were talking about, I just went to I don't know, O'Reilly Auto Parts the other day, and like this kid knew his shit. He was really like, it was his autism thing. Like he loved cars and
there are
troubleshooting all sorts of problems. And like, I don't think an AI chatbot can replace that guy and then pluck the thing off the shelf.
No, so I go to my local Napa store here in town, and
they're expensive.
It's locally. Well, this one is really good, and it's owned locally. I mean, the guy owns the franchise to it.
Really?
But yeah, but it's a locally owned. So, and he will match or beat any price from anything else that I go to.
Is Rock Auto still a thing? Because you can.
I think so.
I've ordered some parts through them, so they'll match like Rock Auto or whomever.
Yeah, but the good thing is I can take oddball stuff there that I can't find information on, and they bring out a book that's this thick, and they page through it and they find exactly what I need.
Granger's like that.
Granger's,
when I worked for a manufacturing facility, we had a Granger, and like those guys were on top of it.
Right.
No, it's cool when you've got someone that's knowledgeable like that, and you can learn something, but that's not the trajectory we're on, is it?
Right. No, it's not.
Why wouldn't it be? I mean, unless those guys are replaced by a negligent business owners.
Yeah, I don't know. Things are different now. I don't know if they're better or not. Like you said, you used to be able to walk into an auto parts store and you'd come across someone that had kind of a wealth of information that was.
Well, I still do, and that's why I'm trying to figure out why you're saying that's not happening anymore.
Well, because I've been to a few where it's not.
Well, I'm just
giving you my anecdotal experience. I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen. It just seems like it to me. And those, like I said, those are just my personal experiences, but I don't know. And it makes me wonder about other industries. Like it makes me wonder, like, even with amateur radio and stuff, like, is it going to be like that? Like if you just start seeing a lot of AI slop and you're like looking for, how do I go into,
how do I keep from talking to the damn police when I'm trying to check into my repeater?
Well, like, if you've got like an Anytone or something, how do you do this function? And usually
anything.
And usually people, well, I mean, that's why YouTube's popular. People, they go searching for videos on how to do a thing, especially with radio. But now there's just so much like AI slop out there that like, you never really find what you're looking for.
You do a web search or internet search. Usually the first result that comes up is an AI response anymore.
Yeah.
But that I have to find that helpful, and then I can jump off of that to the actual.
Well, yes, of course, it is helpful. I think it's good because I've relied on that for a lot of things and gotten correct and good information from it.
And sometimes it's wrong. Like last night, I was trying to look up who the shooter was at the correspondent dinner, and it told me Thomas Matthew Crooks shot Donald Trump at the correspondence dinner in Pennsylvania. I'm like, well, that's clearly not correct. So yeah, you have to be cautious. But I overall, that has been very beneficial for doing research, but it should not be the end of research. I think we already have that skill with Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is a great collection of information for jumping off to verify your actual facts, but it shouldn't be the end of your research. So I think we already have the skills for this.
I think it's helpful for very niche and hard to find facts. You know, like we were talking a little while ago about, like, are there any examples of where amateur radio has filled a communications gap during an emergency? The answer is yes.
Sure.
And so, you know, the internet and all the trappings that come with it are very helpful in narrowing down examples of what you're looking for. But like you said, you still got to go make sure all that shit's real. Like, you got to find other sources, because it does get things wrong. You know, it'll combine events that happened, but they weren't part of the same event. You know,
Right.
it will
Definitely
conflate
gets
things.
confused.
Yeah, but
So I'm not anti-AI. I'm anti the inappropriate application of AI to turn our entire lives to shit. And I don't want to be mandated to use it.
so Ground Fog says, yeah, AI is great. Comb of relevance to find things, but vetting and critical thinking are still very important. Yes.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we need
And
to
that's
be.
getting more and more scarce, though.
All
Well,
right, Yard,
that's
so
on us.
the next
We
one.
can only turn that finger back at us to say, are we teaching our kids how to appropriately vet the information that comes in?
Probably not.
I didn't see Yard Sale's comment. I'm sorry. Yard
Oh
Sale,
no,
I
he
didn't
just
get
said
that.
he was gonna hit the
Oh,
sack. He's
all right. Nighty night.
he's a couple hours ahead of us. Well, actually, Jared's 3, but who's counting? No, I think I say no, that we're probably not vetting the information we give to kids because it's so much.
Well, teaching them is what I mean. Teaching them how
I see.
those skills of how to do that.
I don't know. I don't know what goes on in schools anymore. I don't know what teachers are teaching kids.
Right.
I don't know if.
I love having those types of conversations with my kids.
Yeah.
When we see some bullshit piece of information, let's dissect that. Let's see what's really going on here. Anyway, I enjoy it, and I hope they're
It's good that you do.
benefiting
I
from
hope
it,
other people
even if
do
they
it.
don't realize that.
It's good to question, things you see and hear. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, they should question me. Respectfully, kids, there
Right.
it is. Point at you.
Indeed. Well, I think we've covered just about every topic that we wanted to, and we managed to go almost 2 hours. So we haven't done that in a while. So it was
Feels fun.
it's a good one. I guess
Our record was over 3.
yeah, we've done a couple of those. I try to keep an eye on the clock, and once we get over about an hour and a half, then I think people start getting tired and everyone's got to pee. So perhaps this is a good place to wrap up the show. I guess in no particular order. Drew, do you have anything you want to close with? No, you said it
was
all.
totally unprepared for this. So my channel on YouTube here is at Terminal Element. And right now I'm working on getting the radio message app up and running. We ran into some hiccups. The developer played a sneaky trick on us. He set his app to expire because he didn't want people using old versions.
Oh.
And so all of a sudden the app just stopped working. We're like, what on earth is going on? Turns out he had done that intentionally. It wasn't anything we did. So he's got a new version up now of Radio Message. It's on the VK2 ETA.
So
GitHub.
I'm sorry, what does it do?
It is amazing. So it's a Android app that for radio communications, you can use a lot of the FL Digi modes, like Olivia, for example. And so he's also the developer of AndFL Message. A lot of people have used that.
Oh,
but
really?
this one is specifically designed for groups to communicate. You can relay and make your own kind of mesh, kind of like what I was trying to do with FSQ and JSA call on the Raspberry Pis. But you have all of that capability with the reduced complexity of it being on a cell phone. So you hook your Didgerig, your cell phone to your portable or whatever, and I've gotten amazing results so far with that. It's just, when it works, John. Anyway, so it's up and running now. Continue to do some tests on that to see if I can fully replace my family's digital communication system with just this Android based. And now I feel like an absolute freaking idiot for buying all these Raspberry Pis, but I am never going to stick to a bad plan. If a
I
better
don't think
solution
there's
comes
anything
along,
wrong with sticking with Raspberry Pi. I mean, when I have questions about Raspberry Pi, you're kind of the Raspberry Pi guru that I go to.
Well,
So-
I appreciate that. It's just, it was an expense that I didn't need to go to. I should have sunk my time into understanding radio message years ago, but we're here now. Maybe I'll throw some of these pies up on eBay or something.
Are
And
you going to do a video about radio message soon?
I've got a couple videos on radio message. I wanted to become a power user on it before I start publishing any sort of setup or tutorial videos.
Right.
Because I really, really don't want to give people bad information. But that's coming here soon. And the developer's been very
you need
approachable.
to be a responsible ham operator and berate people and talk down to them for making poor decisions of buying Raspberry Pis and not going with their Android device.
Ground Fog asks, do any of you guys have chats, Discord, Telegram, Signal, etc.? Yes.
I have not gotten into the community building aspect. I just want to
Right.
publish videos and share ideas and get feedback from people in the comments on their ideas as well. So no, I haven't gone that route, but I appreciate that you asked that. What about you,
Jared?
Terrence? Are you doing a community?
I've tried
Yeah.
a couple of times to do like a public facing one. And the intent was I hated all the like, I guess we call it gatekeeping, but I just wanted a place where, people could throw out questions and, and it worked okay for a little while, for like a year. But it always ends up
lose interest in them though too.
Yeah, it just ends up kind of devolving into just posting about what happened yesterday or
I don't want to spend all my time moderating a channel for
I don't either.
toxicity.
And I went into it with good intentions with, hey, if you have legit like radio questions or whatever, like, if I'll try to answer them. And if I don't know, I'll try to point you in the right direction. But then I just decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. Jared, how about you?
I have that Radio Free America group on Signal, and I don't remember. I mean, there was.
I think you still have it around. It's very quiet
there, but I mean, it's been nobody posts on it. Nobody says anything.
Well, like Drew was saying, like people always are like, oh, well, there's nowhere to find information, and we'd love to, have a forum where we can all have that, and people join it first, and then they lose interest.
So the last time anybody said anything on it was back in September.
Yeah.
And it was me and another guy, and we were talking about one of my clients that both him and I knew.
I'm also kind of leery of a lot of the community building attempts because it's usually designed to build a brand and generate more revenue.
Yeah,
but other
thing.
I'm not in it for that. I usually see all my comments unless YouTube doesn't deliver the comment notification to me. So that's how I've interacted with people.
The other group I have is my private tactical group that I run, and we've been going on 3 years now, and we're all very close now. We vet anybody that comes in, and you have to be a participant, and you have to actually show up in person to events, and
I think private groups are probably the way to go. So Ground Fog, I'm sure you probably have some private groups on Signal and Telegram and all that stuff, but
I mean, Ground Fog, if you want, you can go to my main panel my main channel page, and my email's on there. You can shoot me an email. Yeah, panel change. And we can exchange information that way if you want.
Yeah, you're right though, Drew. Like all the ones that I've seen from a lot of other channels and stuff, they're like, oh, you gotta, pay me $1 a week or whatever, or a month. And it's just, then you get in there and it's just, here's what my favorite music is. Like, who gives a shit? Like, I mean, if you're gonna pay for something, then hopefully you're getting value. But anyway,
Great question, though.
Jared, any final thoughts from you, sir?
No, I don't have nothing. I haven't done shit on my channel for a long time.
How come?
Just life is getting in the way. Right now, the past couple months, I've been working on vehicles. I'm working on my newer truck. I'm starting to have some issues with that. I've been doing some research on it. My old truck, I have it in the shop right outside the door here. I've been working on that for about a month.
Jared, I really enjoyed your horseshoeing content.
And I had a separate channel set up for that. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the problem is editing. It's the time spent editing and taking out all the boring crap. Because when I film myself, record myself shoeing, there's so much dead time camera wise, not activity wise on my side, but so much that is not really interesting. At least I don't feel it's interesting.
What about shorts? It seems like the barrier to edit up a quick short is a whole lot less.
It is, but then all my short or all my video content is on my SD card, so I can't just make a short on my phone with it because I'm using my GoPro. So it makes it difficult to make shorts. Sometimes I use my phone and record some things, and I can make some shorts.
You need a horse pissing all over your phone,
right? Or you see a horse shitting down my shoulder, so,
Drew's dying.
Yeah, he's getting pissed on.
Oh, did we get anything on JS8? I forgot to ask.
No, not a damn thing. I didn't see the scroller either, so people probably didn't see it if they came in late.
Opportunity to practice. Shame on all of you. Shame,
well, I don't think they saw it.
When the fucking internet goes down.
And that's another. I haven't done anything radio wise. I haven't even talked on the radio in months. I turn them on and when I'm out here and listen and maybe tune around a little bit, but right now,
immersed as we all are in it, sometimes you lose interest.
I don't want to say I've lost interest. I've just had other things take kind of priority at the moment.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, I've been kind of in the same bucket.
I can't.
Well, you had a huge move.
Shit. Yeah, we sold our house and then bought this one. And
love all your setup posts for your new shack.
It is it's what I've had in my head for like probably about a year. And I was like, oh, I kind of made my own like little Pinterest thing in my head. And I'm like, I want this and this and this, and saved all the links on my phone like a crazy person. But this move has actually kind of made me streamline a lot of my stuff. I had way too much radio stuff. I've actually been giving away a lot of things, a lot of HTs just to people I know and family and stuff. And shit that I bought just, to have on videos and stuff, stuff that I was using. Then I'm like, oh, I'll do a video about it. And then it sits on the shelf and collects dust. And I'd rather give some of these things to somebody that'll actually use them, hopefully.
Way cool.
But I've definitely downsized my gear. I've got my Yaesu FT710 for my ham shack, and I use that for voice and JS8 call. And I'm almost to the point where I've got to make 2 more little connectors, and then I'll get my repeaters going. And my intent is just to have those be a couple of community repeaters for people. And then that's it. And I've got my mobile kit that I take with me in the field, and that's kind of it. I've just scaled a lot of things down, but yeah, I had a big move, and finally took me about, I don't know, a month or so to get set up and just back to where I have my radios again. It's been cool though. Trying to do a little bit of content, here and there. Trying to get a JS8 call on Android working.
I think they need a lot more development on that app first.
I was having
before
a
it can be
hard
viable.
time. Yeah, I was having a hard time getting it to decode. I was going to actually do a video just on how far I got, but because your comment resonated with me a minute ago about, you wanted to wait till you were a power user and you didn't want to do any tutorials. And I started looking at them like, I don't have enough to do a tutorial, but I'll talk about it because I'm excited about that. But we'll see.
I very much respect the effort that they're putting into that. My developer friend Orion, he took a look at trying to adapt that to Android, and I think I mentioned it before. His analogy was if you were to take an entire Japanese office building and rewire it from Japanese electricity to American electricity, and then go rewire all of the appliances in that entire building for American electricity, that's the gargantuan size of the task to take JSA call and route it into Android. So whatever they've done so far, I'm grateful for. It's just not reliable yet.
Tip of the cap to the developers doing that. I mean, like you said,
100%.
that's no small task. I mean, and I know there's some people that are like, well, I can't do this and this. And it's like, look,
just
taking
be patient.
JS8 call and putting that on, making an Android app out of that. Good on you, man.
I'm sure any of those
amazing.
developers would be happy to give that person their money back.
Right, for their free hamburger. But no, I'll probably do a video about it, just kind of talking about how far I've gotten so far. But I agree, it needs a lot more development. But when they do roll it out in its semi-final form, I mean, that's going to be cool because I look forward to being able to run it on my Android devices in the field. But anyway, cool. We're at 2 hours, so thank you guys for your time. It's good to always chat and catch up, and we'll have to do these a little bit more frequently so there's not so many gaps in between. I know we're all busy though, but with that,
get back to our once a month thing.
Yeah, I think we definitely will. We just need to I don't know. We've got some busy schedules. I know Drew's schedule is awfully chaotic. So but we'll shoot for some regular live streams. But with that, everyone watching and everyone who commented, thank you. Appreciate you guys too. And I guess that'll do it. And catch up with you guys next time.